The Front Door is the 6th episode of the first season of The Middle. This is directed by Michael Spiller, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I talk about what happens in the episode. And as is usually the case, it's a really good episode, so I'll go through each main part of the narrative and share some thoughts. Sometimes I go through things chronologically, but I'm finding with The Middle that it's easier to group things by part of the narrative, and the first part involves Sue, and it's picture time for Sue, and it kind of reminded me, I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but it kind of gave me flashbacks of when we'd have school picture day, because it's just a horrible, horrible experience. And Sue's first picture, I actually didn't think was that bad. It wasn't too bad, and apparently she gets 2 retakes. I don't know if this is a common thing in schools in America, but in the UK you don't. The school photographer comes, they take the picture, they leave. They're stuck with whatever the picture was. But Sue gets 2 retakes, and the second retake, admittedly, is bad because she was feeling around in her mouth because she had an ulcer. And the third picture we don't immediately get to see. There is a tiny bit of suspense until we see it right at the end. And again, it wasn't too bad. I still think the first one was the best one, but nevertheless, it's not bad at all. And the fact that Frankie displays it proudly, I thought was really lovely. We then have one of my favourite parts of the episode focusing on Brick, and I couldn't remember from whenever I last watched this episode exactly what happened, and Brick told Frankie a week in advance about a project he had to have done within a week, and normally he tells Frankie the night before or the day of. So Frankie was really pleased. She was bringing Brick loads of sugar cubes from work, and we could see him building this sugar cube pyramid, and it looked absolutely fantastic. It's very clear that something was going to go wrong, and it turns out that that wasn't actually Brick's project, and he told Frankie the day before. So that was a bit awkward. We also have this fabulous bit where a deer comes into the house, and I'll talk about why that is in a moment, and the deer is eating the sugar cube pyramid, and it was just really random and really adorable. Frankie has problems at work, as is usually the case, and she needs to sell a car, or she might have to wear the dog suit. She eventually taps into something that helps her sell a car, and she says that her niche is that she's a mother and she's able to use techniques she's learned as a mother to sell a car, which I feel is pretty interesting. Everybody is going to have a different sales approach, and maybe Frankie has finally found hers. Maybe she has turned a corner. The dog suit also becomes relevant. The main narrative focuses on Axel's behaviour. It starts off with Frankie trying to get Axel up ready for school. He's not getting out of bed. I can't even imagine how frustrating that would be. Mike has a very different approach. Mike is a lot more gentle with Axel, which I don't think is very helpful. And then Mike turns things around, because Mike did take the gentle approach with Axel, asked him to take his plate through the kitchen, and that evening he finds the plate is on the kitchen floor. That's the extent of Axel doing what he was told. And because Axel had not listened to Mike, he's not happy about this, so he demands that Axel puts it away. And Axel is really furious that he's suddenly being told to do all of these things, and that Frankie's going to give him loads of things to do at Mike's insistence. He storms out of the house, slams the door, and the door falls to the floor. Now, to be fair, Mike had been procrastinating with fixing the door. He'd been meant to do it for quite a while. It's not like Axel slammed it that hard that it would break the door. Nevertheless, they decide that the door will just have to stay off until Axel fixes it, and of course Axel, being Axel, refuses to fix it, and we have a series of jokes throughout the episode of people and things walking into the house, and it's freezing cold at one point when they don't have the door, and we have an interesting lesson about stubbornness, and how if 2 people are both stubborn, as we see with Mike and Axel, if nobody gives, no problem will be resolved, and this is exactly what we see here. And ultimately, Frankie ends up fixing the door herself. Does that teach Axel a lesson? No. But at the same time, they had to have a door, so I feel like Frankie was definitely in between a rock and a hard place. She wanted to support Mike, she obviously wanted to teach Axel to do the right thing, but at the same time, you need a door. And it didn't seem like anybody was going to cave anytime soon. But to Frankie's credit, she finds a solution that will teach Axel a lesson while also allowing them to have the door. and she puts Axel in the dog suit and makes him work down at Ehlert Motors. And I thought it was a nice way to bring various aspects of the narrative together, and it was very entertaining, and I really enjoyed it. I think my personal highlight, though, was definitely the story with Brick. I couldn't remember what happened, but I knew something was not right about this Sugar Cube project, and I actually didn't expect it to go the way it did. And I definitely found it to be very entertaining. So ultimately, The Front Door is a really great episode. Axel was very frustrating, absolutely really frustrating, because how do you make somebody do something that they have to do, even if they won't do it? Kind of stressful watching it, and I feel sorry for anybody in that situation. But that aside, it was of course a very pleasant watch. Frankie was as fabulous as always. Some good lessons about stubbornness, and also some good lessons about doing the right thing and not behaving like Axel, because nobody wins and you might end up in a dog suit. So definitely some good lessons. And ultimately The Front Door was a really enjoyable episode.